He said he was straight. The kind of guy who left the gym drenched in sweat, laughed too loud at his own jokes, and always kept the blinds open like he had nothing to hide. His name was Ryan Carter, and for the first 3 months we shared an apartment, I thought I had him figured out. Loud, confident, untouchable. I was the quiet one. The writer. The guy who paid his half of the rent on time and tried not to stare when he came out of the shower in nothing but a towel. But sometimes your eyes betray you before your heart even realizes what it wants. And one night, mine did. He caught me looking. The silence that followed felt like the air had been ripped out of the room. I waited for him to laugh, to mock me, to say something that would crush me. But instead, he stepped closer. What he said next changed everything I thought I knew about him and about myself. If you've ever fallen for someone who wasn't supposed to see you that way, this story will stay with you. Stay until the end, because sometimes the moment you're caught is the moment you finally become free. When Ryan moved in, I told myself it was temporary. Just a few months, split rent, nothing complicated. He was a friend of a friend, a guy fresh out of a bad breakup looking for a place downtown. I'd met him once before at a barbecue. Back then, I remember thinking he was the kind of guy who made everyone else fade into the background. Tall, blonde, shoulders that filled a doorway, and a smile that could get away with anything. When he showed up on move-in day, carrying a duffel bag and a box of protein powder, I realized he was even better looking in bad lighting. "Promise I don't take up much space," he said, setting his stuff down. "Just the essentials." I laughed. "You brought a 50-inch TV. "Yeah," he grinned. "Essential. That's how it started. Easy." He was messy, loud, the kind of roommate who left his shoes by the door and sang off key in the shower. I was quiet, careful, the kind who alphabetized the spice rack. We were opposites, but it worked, for a while. Then came the night that wrecked my calm. It was late, around 1. I was at my desk trying to meet a deadline, half asleep and half caffeinated. Ryan came home from the gym, shirt clinging to him, sweat still shining on his skin. He dropped his bag by the door and opened the fridge. "Man, I'm starving," he said, chugging milk straight from the carton. I rolled my eyes. "You're disgusting." "Hydration," he said, grinning. When he leaned against the counter, I looked up from my laptop, and that's when it happened. I didn't mean to. I swear I didn't. But my eyes trailed down his chest, followed the curve of his abs under that damp grey shirt, the way the fabric stretched across his shoulders. I froze, caught between guilt and wonder. He must have felt it because his voice dropped. "You good?" he asked. I looked up too fast, nearly knocking over my mug. "Yeah, just working." He smiled, slow and knowing. "Sure." He walked toward the living room, peeled off his shirt and tossed it on the couch. My brain short-circuited. "Hot in here," he said casually. I couldn't even form words. He laughed softly, stretching, muscles flexing like he was doing it on purpose. I forced my eyes back to the laptop screen, pretending to type. "You ever go to the gym?" he asked. "Sometimes," I said. He walked closer, standing just behind me. I could feel the heat of him, smell the faint mix of soap and sweat. "You should come with me," he said. "I'll train you." I turned in my chair. "Pretty sure I'd die." He smirked. "Nah, you just need the right motivation." His eyes lingered on mine, longer than friendly, long enough to make my pulse trip. Then he grabbed a towel from the counter and walked off toward the shower. The sound of the bathroom door closing snapped me out of it. I stared at my reflection in the dark laptop screen, heart hammering. "Get it together," I told myself. He's straight, but that night I couldn't work, couldn't sleep. Every sound from the hallway, the shower turning off, the door creaking open, the faint footsteps, made me tense. When I finally left my room to grab water, he was there, standing by the fridge again, wearing nothing but a towel. "Sorry," he said. "Didn't know you were up." "It's fine," I managed. He reached for the milk again, and the towel slipped just enough to make my breath hitch. He caught it, laughing. Relax, man. It's not a crime to look. I froze. What? He turned, eyebrow raised. You've been looking since I got home. Thought I wouldn't notice. My mouth went dry. I wasn't... He stepped closer, towel still clutched at his waist. Don't lie, it's fine, I'm not mad. The air between us buzzed. My heartbeat was everywhere, in my throat, my wrists, my stomach. You don't have to freak out, he said softly. I just didn't think you were into guys. I'm not, I lied. He smiled, tilting his head. Yeah, sure. For a moment we just stood there, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound. His eyes flicked to my mouth, and my brain screamed at me to move, to leave, to say something normal. But I couldn't. Then he said it, the words that cracked everything open. Don't worry, your secret's safe with me. He turned and walked away, towel brushing his legs, leaving me standing in the kitchen feeling like I'd been hit by lightning. I stayed. There long after he went to bed, staring at the empty hallway, wondering if he was teasing me or testing me. Either way, I'd been caught, and nothing between us would ever be the same. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened. He made eggs, left music playing, joked about the broken coffee maker, but every time our eyes met, I felt that spark again, sharp, alive, terrifying. When he leaned over the counter to hand me a plate, his arm brushed mine. My whole body reacted like static electricity. He noticed. Of course he did. You're jumpy, he said. Didn't sleep much. Thinking about something? I swallowed. Work, sure. He grinned. Must have been one hell of a deadline. He winked before walking off. And I swear my brain forgot how to function. The rest of the day was a blur. Me pretending to write. Him moving around the apartment shirtless again, like he was daring me to look. And maybe I was too far gone to stop, because for the first time I wasn't just wondering what if, I was wondering when the line between us would finally break, and deep down I already knew. He was the one who'd cross it first. The days after that night felt like walking a tightrope. One wrong step and everything would crash. But the strangest part was that Ryan didn't act awkward or defensive. He didn't pull away. If anything, he leaned in, just enough to make me question what was real and what was in my head. The morning after, he came out of the shower wearing nothing but a towel again, humming some pop song off-key. Steam followed him down the hallway. "Coffee?" he asked, like we hadn't shared that electric silence in the kitchen the night before. I tried to sound normal. Sure. He poured 2 mugs, handed me one, and sat across from me at the table. His towel slipped a little lower as he leaned back in the chair. "You look nervous," he said, grinning. "I'm not. You're gripping that mug like it owes you money." I forced a laugh, taking a sip. "You ever not mess with people?" "Depends," he said, voice dropping slightly. "Some people make it too easy." He held my gaze, just long enough to make my pulse spike, then got up, stretched, and walked off to his room. That was the thing about Ryan. He always left me hanging between curiosity and chaos. A week later, we were both home on a Friday night. The apartment smelled like pizza and cheap beer. Ryan had just broken up with another girl, something about wrong timing, and I was his unwilling therapist for the night. "She said I don't open up enough," he said. "Flipping through TV channels, do you?" I asked. He shrugged. "Not with her." The light from the TV flickered across his face, soft, tired, unguarded. "Maybe she wanted to see the real you," I said. He laughed. "You think anyone actually wants that?" "I do," I said before I could stop myself. He looked at me then, really looked, and the room went quiet. The air between us was heavy, charged. His eyes flicked from mine to my lips, then back again. "You say stuff like that," he said softly, "and I don't know if you're messing with me or not." "I'm not." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Then what are you doing?" "Trying to figure you out," I said. "You act like you don't care, but you care about everything." He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You think you've got me all figured out, huh?" "Not even close." He stared for a long second, then shook his head and leaned back. You should stop looking at me like that. Like what? Like you see something worth looking at, I swallowed. Maybe I do, that did it. He stood abruptly, pacing the room like he was trying to shake something off. You know I'm not... Yeah, I said quietly. You're not gay, he turned, frustrated. Right, then why do you keep testing me? He froze. What? Every day since that night, I said. You keep pushing this thing? The looks, the teasing, the way you walk around half naked? What are you doing, Ryan? He opened his mouth, then closed it. His jaw flexed. I don't know. Yeah, you do. He ran a hand through his hair. Maybe I just like messing with you. I stepped closer. Then stop pretending it's just that. For a moment, neither of us moved. The only sound was the low hum of the TV, a blue glow flickering between us. Then he said, You ever think maybe you're the one who started this? I blinked. How? That night, he said. You couldn't take your eyes off me. I saw it. I felt it. You looked at me like I was something more than a joke. And it messed me up. I shook my head. That's not an excuse. He stepped closer. Did I say it was? He was so close now I could smell the faint mix of beer and cologne on his breath. My heartbeat was wild. This is a bad idea, I said. Yeah, he said, voice low. Probably. But neither of us stepped back. It happened slowly, the way gravity pulls two things that were never supposed to touch. He reached out first, fingers brushing the side of my face. My breath hitched. Tell me to stop, he said quietly. I didn't. His thumb traced my jaw, then my neck. My whole body felt like it was made of static. When he finally leaned in, I thought I was dreaming, until I felt the warmth of his breath against my lips. He stopped there, close enough to kill me, but not enough to save me. Still think I'm straight? He whispered. I closed the gap. The kiss was nothing like I'd imagined. Not hesitant, not confused. It was fierce, hungry, like he'd been waiting just as long as I had. His hand slid into my hair. Mine gripped his shirt. For a few seconds, the world disappeared. Then he pulled back, chest heaving. Shit, he said. What are we doing? I smiled, dizzy. Something we can't take back? He laughed, a shaky, nervous sound. You're insane. Maybe, I said. But so are you. He looked at me, eyes wild, torn between panic and want. If this screws everything up, it already did, I said. He stared a moment longer, then turned away, pacing again. I can't, Ryan, not now, he said, voice breaking. He grabbed his jacket and walked out the door, leaving me standing in the middle of the living room, heart still racing, lips still burning. I heard the elevator door shut a few seconds later. I didn't know if he was running away from me or from himself. But I knew one thing for sure. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. Because you don't kiss someone like that unless you've already crossed the line, and once you do, there's no going back. For 3 days, Ryan didn't come home. No texts, no calls, nothing. Just silence. His gym bag sat by the couch, his jacket still hanging on the hook by the door, like he'd vanished mid-sentence. The apartment felt wrong without him. Too still. I caught myself listening for his laugh, for the sound of his boots dropping by the door, for his off-key humming in the shower. Instead, there was only the hum of the fridge, and the echo of that kiss replaying in my head, over and over, like a movie I couldn't turn off. By the 4th night, I stopped pretending to work. I was halfway through my 3rd cup of coffee when I heard the door unlock. He stepped in quietly, hood pulled up, face tired. He looked at me, then looked away. You're alive, I said, voice sharper than I meant. Barely, he muttered, dropping his keys. Where were you? Needed space. From me? He didn't answer, just opened the fridge and grabbed a bottle of water. His shoulders were tense, the muscles in his jaw moving, like he was chewing on words he didn't want to say. Finally, I broke the silence. You kissed me, he froze. You kissed me back? Yeah, because I wanted to. Don't, his voice cracked. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. He turned, eyes flashing. Because I can't be that guy, okay? I'm not... He stopped, shaking his head. Not what? I asked quietly. He sighed, rubbing his temple. Not like you. What does that even mean? It means I don't know what the hell I'm doing, he said. I don't know what that night was. I don't know what I'm feeling. I just know it's wrong. I took a step closer. Then why did it feel right? He laughed bitterly. You're good with words, Eli. You can make anything sound beautiful, even mistakes. That kiss wasn't a mistake. He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the storm behind his eyes. The fight between who he thought he was and who he might be becoming. I've never done anything like that, he said. Never even thought about it. Until me. He didn't deny it. Ryan, I said softly, you don't have to label it. Just stop running from it. He exhaled hard, like he'd been holding his breath for days. You don't understand what it's like to have everything you believe about yourself flipped upside down overnight. Maybe I do, I said. Because I've been living like that since the day I realized what I wanted. He stared at me for a long time, then sank onto the couch, head in his hands. I sat across from him, waiting. Finally he spoke. I can't lose control. Not again. You didn't lose control, I said. You let go. There's a difference, he looked up. And what if letting go destroys everything I am? Then maybe it's time to become something new. The room went quiet again. Outside, rain started tapping against the window, soft and relentless. He ran a hand through his hair, leaning back. You make it sound easy. It's not, I said. It's just honest. For a while, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the rain and our breathing, out of sync and too loud. Then he said, You really think there's something here? Between us, I nodded. I know there is. He closed his eyes, whispering, Then God help us both. For the next few days, things were different, quieter, but not distant. He stopped avoiding me, but he also stopped teasing. No more walking around shirtless, no more smirks across the table. Just small talk, weather, rent, the illusion of normal. But it was worse than the silence. Because every look, every brush of his hand, every half-smile carried the weight of everything unsaid. Then came the night it broke again. We were watching a movie. Some action flick he'd seen 100 times. He sat on the couch. I sat on the floor, leaning against it. Halfway through, he reached for the remote and his hand brushed my shoulder. I froze. He didn't move. The air between us shifted, heavy, electric. Slowly, he lowered his hand to my arm, not pulling me, not pushing me away, just resting there. His fingers trembled. Ryan, I whispered. He leaned forward, close enough for me to feel his breath on the back of my neck. I keep trying to stop thinking about that night, he said. And I can't, my pulse spiked. Then stop trying, he exhaled, shaky. You have no idea what you do to me. Then show me, I said before I could stop myself. He moved, slow, deliberate, his hand sliding from my arm to my chest. My heart was pounding so loud it filled the room. He leaned in closer, his lips near my ear. If I do this, he whispered, there's no going back. I don't want to go back. That broke him. He turned me around, kissed me hard, and for a moment everything else disappeared. The fear, the confusion, the rules. Just him and me finally colliding with everything we'd been avoiding. His hands framed my face. Mine gripped his shirt. The kiss deepened, hungry, reckless. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. Why does this feel so right when it's supposed to be wrong? He said, because it's real, he smiled sadly. Yeah, that's what scares me. We stayed there, breathing each other in, until the credits rolled and the TV went dark. Then, without a word, he stood and offered his hand. Come on, he said softly. Where? Somewhere we don't have to pretend anymore. He led me down the hall toward his room. The sound of our footsteps, the only thing cutting through the quiet. And as the door closed behind us, I knew. The line we'd crossed wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Sunlight was the enemy that morning. It slipped through the blinds like it was trying to expose us. The sheets tangled between us, his arm heavy over my waist, his breath warm against my neck. For a few perfect seconds, I forgot everything. The noise, the fear, the unspoken questions, all of it drowned in the rhythm of his heartbeat against my back. Then reality crept in. Ryan shifted, groaning softly, half asleep. His hand moved against my skin, fingers brushing the edge of my hip before he froze. His breath hitched, and just like that I felt him remember. He sat up fast, pulling the blanket around his waist. Shit, I turned over, blinking at him. Hey, he ran a hand through his hair, avoiding my eyes. We shouldn't have done that. I sat up too, heart sinking. You didn't seem to think that last night. He stood, pacing the room. Last night was... I don't know. I wasn't thinking. You were, I said quietly. You just don't like what it means. He stopped, facing me. You think this is easy for me? You think I planned any of this? No, I said. But maybe it's not supposed to be easy. He laughed, bitter, tired. You don't get it. Guys like me don't get to just change overnight. I got out of bed, wrapping the sheet around me. You keep saying guys like me. What does that even mean, Ryan? Someone who feels something and runs from it? His eyes flashed. It means I'm not built for this. I've dated women my whole life. I've got family who'd cut me off, friends who'd never look at me the same way again. You think I can just wake up and say, surprise, I'm not who you thought I was? No, I said softly. But I think you can stop lying to yourself. The words hung there like smoke. He looked away, hands on his hips, breathing hard. You don't know what it's like to live with people's expectations. To be the guy everyone counts on, the strong one, the normal one. I stepped closer. Then stop living for them. He shook his head. It's not that simple. Yeah, I said. It is. He stared at me for a long time, jaw tight, chest rising and falling. Then he said, I need some air. He grabbed his jeans from the floor, pulled them on, and walked out before I could say another word. He didn't come home that night, or the next. The apartment felt smaller than ever. Every object, his shoes by the door, his toothbrush by the sink, the half-empty milk in the fridge, felt like a reminder of what I'd lost before it even had the chance to exist. Milo called that afternoon. You sound like someone died, he said. Maybe something did. Let me guess. The straight roommate finally kissed you? Worse, I said. He didn't stay. Milo sighed. Eli, you knew this was dangerous. I didn't care. Yeah, he said. That's the problem with falling for the wrong kind of man. You always think you'll be the exception. I wanted to be angry, but he was right. Still, something inside me refused to give up. Because no matter how confused Ryan was, I'd seen the truth in his eyes. The way he looked at me like I was both the problem and the cure. On the third night, I was halfway through microwaving leftover pasta when the door finally opened. He looked wrecked. His hair was messy, his eyes bloodshot, his clothes rumpled. He smelled like rain and exhaustion. Can I come in? He asked. I crossed my arms. You live here? He nodded, stepping inside. Right. He stood there for a long time, like he didn't know what to say. Finally he spoke. I've been driving around for hours, thinking. About what? About that morning, he said. About you. About what I said. And he sighed. You were right. I've been lying to myself for a long time. Something in my chest loosened. Then stop, he looked at me. Eyes tired, raw, vulnerable. It's not that easy. I'm not asking you to come out to the world, Ryan. I'm just asking you to stop pretending with me. He nodded slowly, stepping closer. You scare me, you know that. Why? Because you see right through me. And I don't know what to do with that. I smiled faintly. Maybe you don't have to do anything. Maybe you just let it be. He took another step, close enough that I could smell the rain on his skin. You still want this? He asked. Do you? He hesitated, just long enough for my heart to sink, then whispered, yeah. This time the kiss was slower, softer. Less fire, more truth. His hands framed my face, his forehead pressed against mine. I don't know what this means yet, he said, voice trembling. You don't have to, I whispered. Just don't run, he smiled weakly. You're really not going to let me off easy, huh? Not a chance. He laughed quietly, the sound breaking the tension that had strangled us for days. He pulled me closer, his arm wrapping around my waist like he'd finally stopped fighting gravity. For the first time, it felt less like chaos and more like peace. Later, we sat on the couch in silence. The movie played, but neither of us watched it. He rested his head against my shoulder, still half tensed, like he couldn't believe what he was doing. I keep waiting for this to feel wrong, he murmured. And it doesn't. Good, I said. He turned his head slightly, looking at me. You really think people can just change? I think people can stop pretending. He smiled faintly, eyes softening. You make it sound simple. It's not, I said. But it's worth it. He nodded, the faintest glimmer of hope in his expression. Guess I've got a lot to learn. You'll figure it out, I said. We'll figure it out. He leaned in, pressed his lips to my cheek, and quick, nervous, but real. Thanks for not giving up on me, he whispered. I smiled. You made it hard to, he laughed quietly. Yeah, I tend to do that. The night stretched quiet around us. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. For the first time since he moved in, it felt like the walls between us were gone. And even if the world outside never understood, inside that small apartment we finally did. For a while it felt like peace. Not the loud kind, but the quiet one that lives between laughter and touches that no longer need excuses. We fell into a rhythm. Morning coffee together, music filling the apartment, Ryan smiling more than I'd ever seen. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Still, there was a truth neither of us could escape. We were living in a bubble. And bubbles always burst. It started small. A knock at the door one Saturday morning. Milo, my best friend, holding 2 coffees and a grin. Surprise visit, he said. Figured I'd meet your mysterious roommate. Ryan came out of the bedroom just then, wearing nothing but gym shorts, towels slung around his neck, still damp from a shower. Milo's eyes flicked between us, taking in the silence, the body language, the too comfortable familiarity. Ah, he said slowly. So that's the roommate. Ryan froze, then forced a polite smile. Hey man, Ryan, Milo, he said, shaking his hand, but his eyes were on me, amused, sharp, knowing. Ryan disappeared into his room a second later. Milo waited until the door shut, then turned to me. You're sleeping with him. Keep your voice down. I don't have to, he said. The energy in here screams it, he smirked. So how long's this been going on? I sighed. It's complicated. Yeah, it usually is when one of you thinks he's straight. Milo, he softened. Hey, I'm not judging. But be careful, Eli. Guys like him, they'll take what feels good, then run the second it gets too real. He's not like that, I said automatically. Milo raised an eyebrow. No, you sure? I wasn't. That night Ryan was quiet. He'd barely spoken since Milo left. I found him sitting on the balcony, staring at the streetlights below. You heard us, I said. He nodded, still looking down. He's not wrong, you know. I sat beside him. About what? About me running. You haven't, I said softly. You're still here, physically, he said. But you and I both know I'm hiding this from everyone. From myself, half the time. Then stop hiding, he laughed under his breath. You make it sound easy. It's not. But maybe it's time. He looked at me, eyes searching mine like he was trying to find something solid. You really think people will understand? No, I said honestly. But the ones who matter will. He nodded slowly, jaw tight. My brother's coming to town next week. He wants to crash here for a few days. I blinked. Your brother? Yeah, Marine, old school, doesn't exactly handle surprises well, so we pretend. I asked quietly. He didn't answer. That told me everything. When his brother showed up, it was like the whole apartment changed temperature. Mark was taller than Ryan, rougher, with the kind of handshake that felt like a test. So you're the roommate, he said to me, scanning the place like an inspection. I heard you're a writer. Trying to be, I said, forcing a smile. Good for you, he said, in the tone people use when they don't mean it. Ryan kept things light, talking sports, old memories, anything that wasn't me. He laughed too loudly at his brother's jokes, avoided touching me, avoided looking at me too long, and I played along. I told myself it didn't matter, that he was just protecting himself. But when I caught him flinching every time our hands almost brushed, something inside me cracked. That night, when Mark finally went to sleep, I found Ryan in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, eyes closed. You okay? I asked. He opened his eyes, guilt already there. I hate this. Then why are you doing it? Because I have to, he said. You don't know my brother Eli, he's not like your friends. I stepped closer. You think I care what your brother thinks? What anyone thinks? He looked away. You don't have to live with the fallout. I do. And what about me? I said. What am I supposed to do? Pretend I'm just your roommate while you erase what we are? He sighed, voice cracking. It's not erasing. It's surviving, the words hit like a slap. Surviving, I repeated. You call this surviving? Because it feels like hiding. He didn't answer. Tell me something, Ryan, I said, stepping closer. If your brother wasn't here, if the world wasn't watching, would you still pull away from me? He looked at me, and for a moment I saw the truth flicker across his face. Fear, love, longing. I don't know, he whispered. That was worse than a no. For the next 2 days I watched him play the perfect brother. The straight one, the hero. Every laugh, every pat on the back felt like a blade twisting a little deeper. On the third night, I couldn't take it any more. I grabbed my jacket and walked out, down to the park 2 blocks away. I sat on a bench under a streetlight, watching the rain hit the pavement, wondering how love could make you feel so full and so empty at the same time. I didn't hear him coming until he sat beside me. I noticed you were gone, he said quietly. Did your brother? I asked. He exhaled. Yeah, asked where I was going. I told him to mind his own damn business. I looked at him. That must have been hard for you. He gave a half smile. You've got a mean streak when you're hurt. Only when I care. He was quiet for a while, eyes fixed on the puddles. You were right, he said finally. I've been hiding. Not because I'm ashamed of you, because I'm scared of what I'll lose if I'm honest. You'll lose people, I said. But you'll find yourself. He turned toward me then, rain dripping from his hair, his voice low. I don't want to lose you, I swallowed. Then don't. He reached for my hand right there in the open. No walls, no secrets. For the first time, he didn't pull away, and under the rain, with the city lights reflecting in his eyes, I realized something. Love doesn't always arrive when you're ready. Sometimes it shows up when you're terrified and dares you to stop running. The morning after the rain felt heavy, like the world had been holding its breath. Ryan and I moved around the apartment quietly. Coffee, silence, glances that said more than words. Mark was still asleep in the guest room. Every sound felt dangerous. Every second stretched too long. He stood by the window, shoulders tense. He's leaving today, he said softly. Good, I replied. You look like you haven't slept. I didn't. He turned toward me. I keep thinking about last night. About holding your hand out there. If he'd seen, he didn't, I cut in. But maybe it's time he does. Ryan's expression darkened. You don't get it. You've never had to look your brother in the eyes and see disappointment staring back. No, I said, stepping closer, but I've looked at myself in the mirror and seen the same thing. Every day I hid who I was, it killed me a little more. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the kitchen, poured more coffee, and gripped the counter like he was bracing for impact. Ryan, I said softly, hiding won't save you anymore. It'll just eat you alive. He looked at me then, tired, torn, terrified. What if he hates me? Then he was never really your brother, I said. But I don't think he will. Before he could reply, we heard the door creak. Mark's voice carried down the hallway. Smells like burnt toast in here. Ryan straightened instantly, stepping away from me. Morning, he said, forcing a smile. Mark yawned, rubbing his eyes. Morning. You two up early? Yeah, Ryan said quickly. Couldn't sleep. Mark poured himself coffee, watching us. You okay, bro? You look like you've seen a ghost. Ryan hesitated. Just tired. Mark studied him, then shrugged. You always were the restless one. They sat at the table, talking about sports and work. I tried to disappear behind my laptop, pretending not to hear the strain in every word Ryan spoke. Then it happened. A small, careless moment that changed everything. I reached for the sugar. Ryan's hand brushed mine. It was nothing, barely a touch, but it lingered. Long enough, Mark noticed. His expression shifted. Confusion first, then realization, then anger. What the hell was that? Ryan froze. Mark. Don't, he snapped. Don't tell me I didn't just see that. I stood up. Mark? He pointed at me. Stay out of this. Then turned to his brother. Tell me this isn't what I think it is. Ryan's mouth opened, but no sound came. Jesus, Ryan, Mark said. You're living with him? Sharing a bed? Ryan's voice cracked. It's not what? You think Mom and Dad would be okay with this? I stepped forward. You don't get to talk to him like that. Mark turned on me. You think you know him? You've known him, what, a few months? I grew up with him. Yeah, I said, and maybe that's why you can't see he's happier now than he's ever been. Mark's jaw tightened. Happier? You think this is happiness? He's throwing away everything. Ryan slammed his fist on the table. Stop! The sound cut through the room like thunder. Mark fell silent. Ryan stood, breathing hard. You don't get to decide who I am anymore, he said. You don't get to shame me for being honest. Honest? Mark said, stunned. Yeah, Ryan said. For once in my life, I'm not pretending. Mark shook his head slowly. You've changed, Ryan smiled faintly. Finally, for a long moment, no one spoke. The rain outside started again, soft against the window. Mark set down his mug, eyes hard. You really mean this? Ryan nodded. Every word, Mark exhaled, rubbing his face. I don't get it, but you're still my brother, Ryan blinked. What? Mark sighed. I don't like it. I probably won't ever understand it. But I'm not walking away from you, Ryan's voice trembled. You mean that? Yeah, Mark said. You're stubborn as hell. I guess you got that from me, Ryan laughed, half shock, half relief. The tension cracked open, and something softer slipped through. Mark looked at me. Take care of him, he said quietly. I already do. He nodded, grabbed his bag, and left. The door clicked shut. Silence filled the room. Ryan turned to me, tears in his eyes. I thought he'd hate me, I smiled. He didn't. He stepped forward, wrapping his arms around me, holding on like he never wanted to let go. I don't know how to thank you. You just did, I said. We stood there for a long time, the rain fading, the morning light warming the walls. For the first time, there was no fear between us. No pretending, no lies, just truth. Later, we sat on the couch, watching the city through the window. Ryan's hand rested on mine, relaxed, open. You know, he said, I used to think strength meant hiding what hurts. And now, I asked, now I think it means letting people see you, all of you, I smiled. Took you long enough, he grinned. Yeah, well, some of us learn the hard way. He turned to me then, eyes steady, full of peace I'd never seen before. I love you, he said simply. The words hit like sunlight after years of rain. I didn't hesitate. I love you too, and that was it. No fireworks, no dramatic music. Just truth, spoken quietly, in a world that had finally stopped spinning long enough for us to breathe. Sometimes love isn't loud. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to stop hiding, even when the world tells you to. How many lives could change if people stopped being afraid to be seen? If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because sometimes the stories that scare us the most are the ones that set us free.